Hello and welcome to Normal Ireland Live. I'm Curtis Daly and I'm delighted to be joined by Callum Taylor. Callum, you're still feeling under the weather. I understand.
Yeah, full of cold and flu and all that usual jazz, but I'm here and I'm breathing, so what can I say?
It's a theme we've turned left, isn't it? We're all just such sick bugs, aren't we? But we're fighting
Sick
the good
bugs.
fight.
That sounds like a compliment, that. Yeah, all those sick bugs
Sick
that
bug.
turn left. Sick bugs, yeah. It's like sick
Yeah.
bugs. I don't know.
That's like a boomer trying to sound young. Um,
I think I'm
now,
heading that way, Curtis.
Probably. Coming up in tonight's show, we're going to be talking about all the anti-Semitism smears against the Green Party and Zach Balansky. We're also going to be talking about the Zionism is racism motion that sort of got railroaded during the Green Party conference. And we'll be talking about Tony Blair in his rare intervention saying that the left had this unholy alliance with Islamists. Now, you can help us grow by visiting turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to help fund our work, or by becoming a YouTube member for just 99p. But on to our first story. This week, the Green Party have faced a barrage of attacks concerning anti Semitism. First off is a new piece from The Telegraph. In a leaked WhatsApp conversation, The Telegraph twisted the meaning of the messages. And basically, it starts off with, no, she's going to call out the people who have destroyed her and her family. They were Jews, and we shouldn't be afraid to say it. They were Jewish supremacists. She is using the correct description. It's us who have been scared into using the word Zionists because of the fear of being labelled anti-Semites. Enough of being scared of hurting their feelings while they murder, bomb, and starve children. Yes, take back the narrative and the true meaning of the term. Particularly Zionism and Semites, they are an abomination to this planet. Now, look, I think it's incredibly clear that the exchange doesn't refer to all Jewish people. They're talking about Zionists and Jewish supremacists. Now, some people may have a reaction to the term Jewish supremacist. I mean, the Israeli government, arguably much of Israeli society, and many Zionists around the world believe in Jewish supremacism. Israel is literally an ethno-state, right? Zionists believe in a state just for Jewish people. That in of itself is racist. But on top of that, many Zionists believe that the nation of Israel was a promised land for Jewish people and they are superior to Palestinians. Now, Palestinians are currently being slaughtered in the name of Zionism and for some, Jewish supremacy. But if you actually read the article, the Telegraph admits they are spinning this story. A Greens for Palestine spokesman denied members had called Jews an abomination, saying, "We have spoken to the person you referred to in the comments, expressed, and they have confirmed that the comment was explicitly in relation to Zionists, not Jews, and that this was in relation to the genocide of Palestinians. We do not tolerate discrimination against anyone and also reject deliberate and disingenuous attempts to conflate Zionism and Judaism." So they were talking about Zionists and condemned anti Semitism. Yet this is how GB News spun the story. Jews are an abomination to this planet, say Green Party activists, in messages straight out of Nazi Germany. And if you noticed that GB News or any article that conflates this and spins it, they don't put the word Jews in quotation marks because it would be probably defamatory or libel if you were to try and quote these people saying that Jews are abomination. So they can't put it in quotation marks. And GB News is the same channel that pushes remigration arguments. So, what, they're concerned about racism? Now, the attacks continued, specifically with Zach Polanski. The Daily Mail put out a hit piece contacting members of Zach's distant relatives. The Daily Mail has spoken to 3 members of Mr. Polanski's extended family, none of whom now talk to him. He is currently the leader of the future Islamic Party of Britain. That's what the Green Party is fast becoming, said one. And there will be no place for Jews in an Islamic state of Britain. If the Zionism is racism motion is passed, it will make the Greens the most anti-Semitic party in British history since Oswald Mosley's British Union of Fascists, said a second relation. The idea of it is one of the most sickening things I've heard in a long time. A third family member said, the mad thing is that he's gay, he's Jewish, but he's cozying up to people whose ideology is the complete antithesis of everything that he's supposed to stand for. It's like he's a chicken telling us to vote for KFC. Now, I think it's clear that these particular people that the Daily Mail spoke to are massive Zionists and they're projecting their extreme Islamophobia because apparently Muslims hate gay people. All Muslims aren't progressive and they're not secular. That's what it really means. They're saying that the Green Party is Islamist because they dare speak up for Palestinians. Now, Zach rightly attacks the Mail for their hit piece. This is why Daily Mail journalists are going after my family now. The right-wing propaganda machine will not work on the Green Party. We're ready to end We're ready to end Rip-Off Britain, end the cost of living crisis, and make hope normal again. He quote tweeted a recent poll from Varian Group, who were close with their prediction in the 2024 general election, putting the Greens on 20%. Pro-Israel journalist Nicole Lampert, who contacted Zach's family, said, Daily Mail journalists aren't going after your family. As you are aware, there is more we could write if we were. I don't know what that means. I'm a freelance journalist who spoke to your family members who are frightened by the Jew hate in your party. They are frightened by what you have given the green light to. While you once fought Jew hatred, now you indulge in it because, as we both see, it is popular. Other political groups have discovered this in the past. Shame on you, Zach Polanski. Shame on you. And Zach responded with this. Daily Mail and journalist, those words don't belong together with your parasitic behaviour. You try your daily nonsense with a paper that literally backs the fascists and the Green Party continue to rise. Together, we will win. Now, for his reply, Zach, who himself is Jewish, as you'll know, he was accused of anti-Semitism. Lampert said, when the leader of a racist party, that's right, calls the Greens a racist party, a Jewish journalist, me, parasitic simply for reporting that his Jewish family are scared by the direction his Zionism is racism party is going in, this is the true face of the nasty Greens. Now, notice in that tweet, she didn't say that Zach is also Jewish, you know? That maybe you shouldn't police what other Jewish people should say. Now, ending the exchange, Zach, again, defended himself. I didn't call you a parasite. I called it parasitic behaviour. You can't even report the basic facts properly that everyone can see in seconds. It should be shameful for you and the entire Daily Mail. Now, an account called Stop the Hate, which was created 2 years ago, jumped in. We are appalled that the leader of the Green Party described Nicole Lambert as, a Jewish journalist as parasitic. There is no excuse for this. We hope other journalists and MPs from all parties will condemn this hate speech. And I think this led to a very interesting exchange with Aaron Bastani. He replied and he said, so we can use that word for everyone but Jewish people. Why? They hit back, Nazis characterised Jews as parasites, which Polanski must surely know. We sure you know this too, he responded. So a Jewish person can call me parasitic, but I can't call them the same. Those are the rules. They then say, using a word that Nazis used as part of their campaign to demonise and then murder Jews is a choice. You clearly don't care, but we do. He then says, what other words can Jewish people use against me that I'm not allowed to use against them? A list would be helpful. I think all landlords are parasites. If one happens to be Jewish, am I now joining in a Nazi campaign? Come on. But just take a look at the profile page of Stop the Hate's Twitter. It's one big Israeli flag. All right, there's not more to say. I am going to say more, though, because Minpress News did a background check on this organisation. Jewish News identified two Israelis, Itai Galmundi and Yoki Davis, as among the founders. Born in Rishon LeZion and raised in Reut near Modanin, Galmundi lived in the United Kingdom between 2004 and 2008, returning to Israel to study at university and serve in the Israeli Defense Forces. He participated in Operation Protective Edge, Israel's 2014 bombardment of Gaza, wherein the IDF is widely accused of carrying out serious war crimes, including deliberately targeting deliberately targeting civilians. Although it states that it is a non-profit organisation, Mint Press could find no registration of the group with the Charity Commission for England and Wales. So this guy worked for a terrorist organisation, the IDF. Meanwhile, as media outlets and pro-Israel journalists are bravely standing up to a Jewish man for anti-Semitism, conveniently, none of these people have mentioned this. So, members of a neo-Nazi British movement were not prosecuted after a 10-month investigation from Greater Manchester Police where they celebrated Hitler's birthday. Officers found materials such as replica firearms, swords, a crossbow, and a canister with the Zyklon B logo, the gas used by the Nazis in the death camps. Why is that not being reported? Callum, how do you think Zach is handling these attacks?
I mean, he's handling them pretty well. Given all that's been thrown at him, right? I mean, we've seen all these tactics being used before. It's the same tactics that were thrown at Jeremy Corbyn. Just excuse me while I just take a quick tablet. We've seen this before. It's straight out of the 2017 to 2019 attack Labour playbook, isn't it? Accuse them of being anti-Semitic. What's interesting in this case is obviously the big difference is that the Green Party, you've got a Jewish leader. So that conversation between Aaron Bastani was really and the journalist was really interesting because I understand the need to be careful around certain language. There's long been conversations from certain marginalized groups about using words that have historically been used against certain groups. And I understand that. And I think there's room to have that conversation. But that isn't what's going on in this instance. In this instance, you've got a Jewish man referring to somebody else as behaving in a way that is parasitic. A word that has been used to describe the media time and time and time again. The fact that the journalist is referring to also happens to be Jewish. Okay, is there a conversation to be had there? Well, you've got one Jewish person referring to another Jewish person using that word. So, what I don't see the issue there. I really don't. The whole extended family thing, I just think is hilarious because I think every single person, I think all of us at Turn Left and everybody watching this stream, I think probably has at least one family member, if not more, who would absolutely sell them out to the press if they happened to be the leader of a political party. Like, that's just family dynamics, right? Every single family has got at least one person that, that doesn't like them or that disagrees with their views or that, has, absolutely no issue whatsoever with publicly calling out what they seemed or what they believe to be bad behavior of that individual. So the fact that the Daily Mail have managed to find a couple of people in Zach's family who haven't got a nice thing to say about him, well, yeah, no shit. Like, every family's got someone that's going to say something like that if you dig far enough. And that comment about, oh, we're not going after your family because if we were, there's more that we could write. That just sounded like a threat to me. That sounded like we're going to deliberately try and sow doubt in the minds of people reading this to make them think that there's actually some big scary scoop that's, some skeleton in the closet that we're choosing not to report on. Bullshit. If Zach Polanski's family had something so huge that could bring him down overnight, the Daily Mail would have absolutely ran with that story rather than saying, oh, yeah, some distant relative of Zach Polanski thinks he's a rotten egg. Oh. And the way that Zach's responding to it is brilliant. Jeremy Corbyn, for all his brilliance and wisdom and, all the support that I've had from him over the years, I don't think he handled a lot of the smears against him particularly well. I think that Zara Sultana is right when she used the word capitulation. I can't even say it. I feel as though Jeremy tried to glue people together and try and keep everybody happy and trying to appease everybody, including the media, and it didn't work. It absolutely didn't work. Whereas Zach's taking no shit. Zach's just like, no, that's just bullshit, and I'm going to call it out. Will it stick in the long term? Well, who knows? I mean, the best that they've got against him is the Hypnoboob story, which when that hasn't worked, they've had to go and harass members of his family. Oh, sorry. Members of his family have contacted the media, apparently, to say what, we don't like the direction he's going, and we're fearful as Jews, when he's also a Jewish man himself. It's just complete and utter bollocks. It's nonsense. I don't really know what else to say. It's just, yeah, he's handling it very well, I think.
I mean, I think going after family members is gutter, though.
Oh, absolutely. But
And
would you expect anything else from the Daily
I
Mail?
wouldn't. And again, you make a really good point there when Nicole's like, well, I tell you what, if we went for family members, there'd be a lot more we could publish. And like the idea that the Daily Mail would hold back on something, like if there was one thing that could absolutely destroy Zach Polanski, do you think they would go for it? Of course they would. Of course they would. I think you're right about Jeremy Corbyn. With Jeremy, though, I mean, hindsight is also a wonderful thing. But Jeremy, he had people like Margaret Hodge in his party, ultra Zionists in his party, and of course he wanted to try and make it work. But it just shows that you can't. You can try and capitulate, but that would be kind of, it would only work if they were principled in their opposition to it.
The
Right?
thing is,
They're
as
going to keep
well,
dragging you that way
it, it,
towards
it's
being Zionist.
it's so ridiculous that a lot of the discourse in the media today has been, oh my God, Zach Polanski danced next to somebody that showed a bit of skin at the weekend at an anti-far right
Yeah,
rally.
yeah.
Like, they've got fuck all on him. They've got absolutely nothing on him. So they're trying, because it worked for Corbyn, they're trying to smear both Zach and the Green Party, and we'll come on to more of this later in the show, as being anti-Semitic. And as Zach has pointed, and that's the other thing, Zach pointed out, he's the only leader of a party who is Jewish, right? Currently, and he's said in the past that he's one of, I think, 5 historically, but because of the way he worded a tweet the other day when he was like, I'm the only Jewish leader of a political party, everyone's attacked him for that and saying, oh, what, do you not know about Disraeli? And it's like, what, are we living 100 fucking years ago? Like, come on. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting tactic to accuse the party, led by the only Jewish leader of anti-Semitism. Though, as someone pointed out on Twitter the other day, and I suppose they do have a point, could we say that the Conservative Party can't possibly be racist because they've got a black leader of their party? Well, no, I'm sure we would all agree that just because their leader is black doesn't mean that the party themselves can't be racist. It doesn't even mean that Kemi Badenoch himself can't be racist. So I suppose, to play devil's advocate, there might be an argument if there was evidence. But what's interesting here is that they've not got any evidence that Zach's anti-Semitic. They've not got any evidence that the Green Party are anti-Semitic, other than the fact that, like they tried with Corbyn, we've got a serious problem with a genocidal regime in Israel that continuously kills, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians. That's what we've got an issue with. And some of those people are people who believe that they have a divine right to have a land over anybody else because of their ethnicity and their background, which is racist, which is, the whole point of the motion that we'll come to in the next story. So, yeah. I mean,
I think also what you pointed out there about how, yes, you can be a member of an ethnic minority, be racist against your own background. That is absolutely true, right? But what I find interesting is it was the right wingers who used that kind of identity politics, saying, well, I'm Jewish, therefore you cannot criticize me unless you're Jewish, or you can't have a say on anti-Semitism unless you're Jewish. Like, that was the game they wanted to play. And now we're going to be like, well, we're going to just play that game right back at you then. You said that's the terms of the debate that these people set out, that you cannot have a discussion around anti-Semitism because you're not Jewish.
Yeah.
All right, well, Zach is Jewish.
Yes,
Maybe you should shut the fuck up.
but Curtis,
and like it's
But Curtis, you're right, and Zach is Jewish, but to them, he's the wrong kind of Jew.
exactly
Zach
which
is
is
like,
very anti-Semitic
but
as
Zach
well.
is like the Jewish people in the Labour Party that are 3 times more likely to be expelled under Keir Starmer's Labour
Exactly.
for anti-Semitism than anybody from any other ethnic background, right? Zach is one of those Jews. Zach is a Jewish person who has betrayed his ethnic group and betrayed his people. Who's been fallen into a rabbit hole and been hypnotized, for want of a better word, when talking about Zach Polanski, into believing all this horrible anti-Jewish rhetoric. Because obviously they can't go after him for the fact that he's a non-Jewish person. making the comments that he's making, so they have to find a, another angle to go at it from. And it's like we've always said, and I say this every single time that we have this conversation, which is the difference between the conflation of being, anti-Zionist and anti-Israeli governments, and being anti-Semitic. The two things are not the same. And so often, I mean, I saw on Twitter before we came live, Curtis, you'd pointed out the Jewish Chronicle were putting out an anti-Semitic headline against Zach Polanski. I think, did they say that he was what was it they said? He was the perfect Jewish court jester or something
It was some of
along
that
those lines.
effect. He was a court Jew.
A
You know,
court,
he
and
was
it's
he
like,
was a
what?
jester because he was a fake Jewish person. Like that's kind of what
Like,
he's saying.
so the very people who claim to be the protectors against anti-Semitism are attacking Zach in a way that I would say is anti-Semitic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think one of the biggest sources of anti-Semitism
The
is
court Jew,
Israel.
yeah, that's what they said. The court
Is
Jew.
court Jew. Is Israel and is Zionism. Yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion so many times. I do want to move on because it's
Mhm.
sort of the same discussion. But we're already at 8 o'clock, so I'm going to swiftly move on. Um, So, the much anticipated motion, Zionism is Racism, has stalled at the Green Party Spring Conference. The UK Green Party's planned vote on a Zionism is Racism motion did not proceed after multiple no confidence votes were submitted, creating delays and meaning it was never heard or debated. Members of the party brought motion A105 Zionism is Racism in February, which defines Zionism as racism, recognizes its continued harm actually to Palestinians, and would position the stance of the Green Party as anti-Zionist. However, according to the Telegraph, members backed by the Jewish Greens submitted a motion to restrict the use of the terms Zionist and anti-Zionist in official party communications in an effort to stop the Zionism is racism proposal. Supporters of Zionism is racism then fast tracked the motion, which meant it would be heard much earlier than first planned. However, before it was able to, sorry, However, before it was able to be heard, multiple motions of no confidence in the chair were submitted, one after another, in an effective filibuster. Under the Green Party's constitution, all no confidence motions must be debated, which took up the remaining conference time, even with an extension, and meant that the Zionism is Racism motion and its 4 amendments were not heard, debated, or voted on. The motion can still be heard at a later conference. So was this a deliberate sabotage, or did the motion, get caught up in procedure? I mean, I do think restricting the use of or the words Zionism and anti-Zionism is absurd, and of course that would mean debating the motion would be impossible. And according to that article, apparently the Jewish Greens were seemingly frustrating the process. The group, that is, not Jewish Green members. But does that mean that this was like a top-down coordinated effort to stop the motion? I don't know. However, the Canary shared this screenshot of Green Party councillor Andre Fries. She posted, "I'm relieved to say that the anti-Semitic Zionism is racism motion failed to pass at Green Party Spring Conference yesterday. This was despite shenanigans by the proposers and supporters to get it up the agenda. Importantly, Green MP Carla Denyer was planning to speak against the motion on behalf of the MPs, peers, leader Zach Polanski and deputy leader Rachel Millward. The hard work of reaching out to the proposers to come to a realistic accommodation on this motion that doesn't endanger Jews needs to start. We will need mediators to help us through this." I think that is an absolutely insane thing to say. It's not an anti-Semitic piece of legislation. And she's mentioning there that we need to amend this bill or motion to make sure that it doesn't endanger Jewish people. I've read the motion. It doesn't endanger Jewish people. And calling the motion anti-Semitic is absolutely wild. I mean, Zionism is a political ideology, and calling it out for its racism is not anti-Semitic. Now, Fries also claims that Carla Denyer was going to speak against the motion with the apparent backing of Zach Polanski and Rachel Millward. Now, is this true? Who knows? Honestly, don't know. Now, look, I don't have a problem with people using their democratic right to debate against this emotion, right? And Zach has publicly said he thinks this current form of Zionism is bad. Now, my disagreement with him is that there are different forms of Zionism. I think he's doing a bit of Zionism revisionism. I don't agree with him. But my bigger concern is MPs and leadership figures would have weight on a particular motion when they should be impartial. But again, that is just a claim from Freeze. Now, the author of the motion, Lubna Smyton, trying to get on the show tonight, but she was so busy we couldn't. But I did get a comment from her, and she was at the party conference. She had a speech as well, but this is what she wrote to me. The conference witnessed Zionism in practice as a small group sabotaged the conference with delays, filibustering, abuses of the party constitution, code of conduct, and philosophical belief. They stooped to new lows by also sabotaging other motions in an attempt to take up precious conference time and reduce the chance of our motion being heard, which resulted in other motions also not being heard. The majority voted against their request to rule our motion out of order. The majority voted in favour of prioritising our motion to be heard. After all the attacks, including approx 6 votes of no confidence in the chair at several intervals, again, to prevent the motion being heard, a member of the party requested extra time for us to continue and vote for the motion. This was also supported by the majority. Their attacks on democracy and the abuse of party process demonstrated further that we are confronting and why this motion is necessary. This is just the beginning. I couldn't be more proud of everyone who has tirelessly and determinedly turned up to support us for the huge and obvious victory this truly was. Giving up is not an option. We will return. By the way, that motion will be debated again at conference. Now, to in the interest of balance, I'm going to read a couple of tweets from a thread from Gary Spedding, who broke down a lot of the internal communications. I suppose it's not internal; it was publicly viewable of the conference. And Gary Spedding says, based on multiple conversations I've had with numerous Green Party members, I've started to understand more clearly what unfolded over this weekend at the Green Party Spring Conference. It's a messy affair full of disruptions, insults, procedural issues, and malicious activity. Now, most of these, or all of them, he says, came from the motion A105, Zionism is racism. The first thing Green members were asked to vote was asked to vote on was a submission that would declare the motion out of order. This was a war of procedural motions ensued all day long. The voting system crashed because so many people tried to vote. Gary says, I've asked Jewish Green Party members their thoughts on claims that anti-Semites have found a home in the Green Party, and there is no internal challenge to problematic or racist behaviour activities. The response have been clear. That's absolutely not true. If you want evidence that there is indeed internal debate and challenges to issues relating to anti-Semitism, Zionism and Israel, then look at what happened during the spring conference. The entire thing was an internal challenge. That's why Zionism is racism didn't get debated. He then says, I'm told that due to the poor behaviour of Green members on both sides of the argument, coupled with the abuse of procedural motions and clauses, the entire conference became a shit show, and that it was total chaos that derailed other important motions and policy decisions. What is very interesting is that before the spring conference, very little organising had been done on the Zionism is racism motion beyond encouraging people to join the party and vote in favour of the motion. Nobody mentions that the motion was at the bottom of the priority list. Weeks before the spring conference, there was a members' ballot for setting prioritisation on motions. During this phase of the procedures, the Zionism is racism motion came almost last on the priority list. Once conference was arised, efforts to change the motion priority started. At least 9 members of the Greens that I've spoken to have told me that Greens for Palestine encouraged a lot of people to flood in with membership applications and to sign up for spring conference. Most of those people didn't understand anything about the party or its procedures. He says a lot of people joined for this motion. 2 Jewish Greens have told me that it wasn't just pro-Palestine people flooding the Green Party with membership requests and applications to attend spring conference. There is a core of 7 or 8 pro-Israel activists also in the Green Party organising support for Israel. A key issue I found at the stage of my conversations was that there were only around 800 people or less at this shit show of a conference in a party now boasting over 200,000 members. Again, I mean, people should go check out this thread from Gary Spedding. He documents quite a lot, but what he's saying here is a bit more nuance. He's saying, based on conversations, those that tried to get people to sign up to the Zionism is racism motion didn't tell people that in terms of the priority list, it wasn't high. And then lots of people sort of joined the party to vote for it. But actually, there was also pro-Israel people trying to get involved too, and the procedures was all a bit messy. So obviously, Lubna claims and other people who support this motion have claimed that it's sort of a Zionist stitch-up. Other people are saying it wasn't a Zionist stitch-up. There were people who were pro-Israel that were trying to stitch it up. There were people that are trying to get the motion blocked, but a lot of it was just down to procedure. I, for one, think that the Green Party having, especially with 200,000 members, having a spring conference online is not a good idea. I mean, there was even a vote on nationalisation, and that got voted against. And it was out of like, what, 400 people, 500 people against 200,000 members. So maybe just the entire setup of a small amount of people going to online conference isn't a good idea. Callum, many people support this motion, including myself, by the way. But do you think there's a danger of this becoming a sort of distraction where we should all come together to oppose the genocide?
I mean, it already is a distraction, isn't it? Because it's what everyone's talking about rather than opposing the genocide, as far as the Green Party is concerned at the moment. But I want to say I didn't attend spring conference. I actually voted in favour of having spring conference again a couple of years ago because it had been we never used to have it. Like they got rid of it, and I can see why. Because I thought when I was voting that we'd have an in-person conference. Well, no, it was online. It's my understanding. I reached out to somebody within the Green Party for some information today, and 2,000 people were signed up to attend conference. And conference was advertised as being sold out. So we don't know how many places they had. I tried to get that information, but I wasn't able to get an exact figure. But 2,000 people signed up to attend. There's over 220,000 members in the party now. Having an online conference where they only had one day for policy. I mean, yesterday was all just training and lectures, essentially. Like, there was no policy days yesterday, which there could have been, but there wasn't. That was also just nonsensical. It's probably worth pointing out that Stats for Lefties has said that she was one of the people that essentially caused problems in terms of time being wasted by putting in a vote of no confidence in the chair. But she did it because of what she said was a case of a transphobic comment from the chair. I don't know if it was aimed at her or somebody else. And obviously, she's pointed out she's absolutely in favour of this motion. So there was certainly stuff that was going on that delayed proceedings that weren't directly aimed at trying to stop this motion from passing. But this motion was never going to pass this weekend. It was number 12 on the list. They had a vote in conference to raise it up to number 3. Even then, it was never going to. They were never going to get the time to do it in one day, even without the filibustering that was going on. It was always going to end up being prioritised for the autumn. And I mean, look, as far as the Carla Denny thing's concerned, I mean, let's see what she had to say, right? I'd be interested in hearing her argument against the motion, actually. I am in support of it in theory, but it'd be interesting to hear that argument. Well, we never got to hear that argument because we ran out of time, which is always the way. Now, Flow Snakes pointed out in the comments that Kerno Damo has done a really good video on this. I actually watched it earlier just to try and catch up with what was going on, and he outlines in quite a lot of detail just the mess, the shit show that went on. But I'll be honest with you, as much as I want to come here and rave and support the Green Party, I'm really struggling to with this weekend because the procedures and the processes that underpin the democratic process of the Green Party, while they're great in practice, one member, one vote, brilliant, perfect, everyone gets a chance to vote. The voting system crashed with 1,000 odd people trying to vote. Could you imagine if every member had actually tried to join conference at the weekend? One, there wouldn't have been enough places for everyone, and two, the system wouldn't have allowed any votes because it wouldn't have been able to cope. So the infrastructure, which in fairness isn't necessarily the fault of the party, you know, it was designed at a time when they had 20,000 members. You know, they've now got 200,000 more members than that. But there is a huge need, very, very urgently, for the internal infrastructure within the processes to be updated. The problem is a lot of internal process is also democratically elected on within conference, and they didn't get to vote on any of the procedural motions that were on the agenda because they didn't have time. And this is always the case. When I attended conference in person 2 years ago, you know, half of the first day was spent just on process stuff, and that we didn't get to the policy stuff. So I think there needs to be a huge rethink about how Green Party process works. As far as the actual motion is concerned, it is clear that there were people within the party who desperately wanted to prevent this motion from being debated. The ironic thing is if they hadn't have wasted time, even with it being moved up the list, I don't think they'd have had time to vote on it anyway. They'd have had time to have a bit of a debate and hear each side of the story and each side of the argument, but it still wouldn't have made it to a vote. It was never going to get voted on this weekend. But as Damo points out in his video, the fact that people had to use process to try and stop it shows that there is huge support for this motion. There was a vote at the beginning of conference to try and rule the motion out of order, which means it would have been completely removed from the agenda. That was voted down. There was also a move by the Standing Orders Committee to try and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but essentially to try and take sort of some control back, where they would actually be able to decide what motions didn't get voted on that day, which in theory could have meant they could have turned around and said any motion they don't like, we're not even going to hear, and then it wouldn't be able to come back because it would have been removed from the agenda. And naturally, that was also voted against, rightfully, as it should have been. But the only way that people that were against this motion had to try and show that was to filibuster and to fight back with process, and it's a complete shit show. I'm really, in some ways, I'm glad I didn't attend because it would have just been a nightmare. And you know what? You know what's really funny? I've seen a lot of your party members like looking at this and completely slagging off the way that it works. And some would argue, particularly in the Green Party, well, you know, who are they to pass comment on, you know, internal squabbles within parties and you know procedure that doesn't help the members. But actually, I honestly think when it comes to this, having also been at your party conference, that your party's process certainly seemed a lot cleaner, despite the arguments and despite the, you know, the crap that went on there, than the Green Party process at the moment. And I think part of that's because it was an online conference. And you had people. I mean, I don't know how many Green Party members are watching this, but I'm a member, as people know, and I've been an active member. A new conference was happening. I hardly got any correspondence about it. I think I got 1 or 2 emails. I think the rest of the correspondence might have gone to my spam, but I hardly saw anything about it. And there were new members that would be joining the party over the last few months that didn't even know we were having a spring conference. Like, that's an issue. We've been great with comms on a national level, communicating our procedures and our policies and you know, and our beliefs and our values to the general public. Fantastic, great. But I think internally there is still a huge problem with internal comms to the membership in terms of what is actually going on, what motions are being debated and discussed, and the importance of those motions, as well as a huge problem, as I say, with how all the process and procedures are designed, as they were created, like I said, for a party of a much smaller membership.
There was also a tweet I missed from Gary Spedding's thread, which I want to highlight to maybe add further clarification. He says, from the perspective of several Jewish Greens, including anti-Zionist Jewish Greens, the main issue they took with the motion A105 is that it doesn't simply focus on Zionism, but also goes after the Greens' adoption of the Jerusalem Declaration on Anti-Semitism. And that is true. When you read the motion, it's not just saying we're claiming that Zionism is racism. The specific text does go after current Green Party guidance on anti-Semitism. Now, for me, and this is my personal view, I think it was important to include that because I went through some of the existing guidance on anti-Semitism in the Green Party, and I wasn't particularly happy with it. I think there was lots of interpretation where you could criticize Israel, and that could be lumped under anti-Semitism. One example was saying about the size of the Israel lobby, and it sort of said, people could see that as you saying Jews control everything. I was like, sure, that is a conspiracy theory, but it's also true that Israel has a mighty lobby. And talking about the Israeli lobby and how it pretty much controls a lot of things, it's not anti-Semitic. So there were certain unclear things. And again, I think it's about, you're absolutely right in terms of the procedures. You've got 200,000 members in the Green Party. When it comes to Labour, I suppose they had the apparatus because their membership size has gone up and down. But,
also
they had millions of members at one point, whereas the Greens have never had this amount of members.
But also, Curtis, the Labour Party, importantly in this case, they don't have a one-member, one-vote system. They elect delegates who then go and represent their local parliament, their local constituency party, right? So every constituency essentially elects, a handful of people to go and represent the views of all the other members from that area. And I don't want the Green Party to have that. I think one member, one vote is the best way to do it. It is the most democratic. But if you are going to give 220,000 plus people the chance to vote, you need to make sure that if all of them wanted to vote, they would be able to vote. Just as far as the motion goes, I think another point I think is also worth considering, just to play devil's advocate with the other side of the argument here. I'm still struggling to see what it's trying to achieve outside of deciding a definition and a sort of a value for the Green Party to adhere to and to stand by. There's no sort of policy that they could. You can't take that to the doorstep and say, oh well, we voted to say Zionism is racism.
Yeah.
How does that translate on the doorstep? It doesn't translate at all. It's a row, arguably, about definitions, very, very important definitions, and for what it's worth, I do think on balance I do support the motion. However, I think there are many people in the party that are looking at this from the other side, which is what's the public perception of it? And if that motion doesn't achieve anything practical that can be applied, and also, it's not like we've got huge problems within the party where we've got disciplinary action being taken against people because of definitions of anti-Semitism or, differences in definitions of Zionism and how we look at that within the party. If all that was going on and it was maybe being skewed where it wasn't accurate, then fair enough, it might be worth it. Like in the case of, the trans rights disciplinaries, where we've actually said as a party, no, actually, we do recognise that trans women are women, and if you don't think that, then you can fuck off. But I do think there are many people within the party who are worried about the public opinion of this. Now, there's two ways that can be looked at. The first way is how we're looking at everyone else. Well, who gives a shit? Because we know it's the right thing to do, so should we do it anyway? We can defend it, and it will be defended. And in the grand scheme of things, people care about how much money they've got in their pocket rather than what definition of certain words the Green Party tried to choose, right? But on the flip side of that, if the policy doesn't change anything in practice, if it's not something that can be applied practically, are the Green Party wasting time and energy even debating it, rather than actually introducing policies that would tackle the actual problem, that would implement more sanctions on the Israeli government, that might apply more boycotts to Israeli goods, for example, that might do more to protect the rights of Palestinians? Like, is there something that could be done that would actually make a difference rather than a debate about definitions? And I don't know.
I
And just again, just for the record, and just to clarify, I like I say, I do support the motion, and I
mm.
do believe and I do agree that Zionism is racism. But I just think it's worth
No, I think you make a good
considering that other
point.
side.
I do think you make a good point because could this create unnecessary divisions when at the end of the day what matters the most is the policy against Israel. And if we all agree that it's a genocide and we all agree that we want to stop arms sales to Israel, and we want to implement BDS, then does it really matter? So I think that's like a good point. One thing I want to kind of insert in there, maybe just to think about, is that I do think a lot of political parties or political factions will speak up for Palestinians and say the right thing when it's kind of comfortable. Like more and more people can say, yeah, right, it's an apartheid state, yeah, it's a genocide, whatever, and that's it. But it's noteworthy that Lubna Spiten is Palestinian, and when do Palestinians get to have their own voice in a political party?
True.
We
But
have we have Jewish, but we have Jewish blocs in all political parties, right?
yeah.
Jewish people have a voice, but Palestinians don't get their voice. They might be a bit uncomfortable, might cause a bit
Which
of
is true.
controversy.
Although I think it's
Um,
worth remembering that the Green Party was the first political party. In fact, I think it was
it was, yeah,
when
yeah.
I went into conference that officially declared that they believed that what was happening in Palestine was a genocide. It's party policy now. That was voted on by members. That I think I might be wrong. I think we're still the only party in the UK that recognises officially in its policy as what's happening as a genocide. So I don't know. I don't know if I get it, and I understand. And you know what? This will go back to the members in autumn in Brighton, and we'll see. But I have no
Mm,
doubt whatsoever that this motion will get passed at conference if a, a- um, an extraordinary conference isn't called between now and the autumn in order to pass this motion, because that is something that Green Party policy allows for. I'd
yeah.
be very surprised if it happens. But if members want to try and call an extraordinary conference, there is a procedure in place for that to happen. And we could have another, it'll be online, I imagine, but we could have another weekend in a few months from now, before the autumn, where we get a chance to vote on it again. What I am worried about, though, is that the press are now just going to run with this for the next 6 months. For the rest of the year, it's going to be, oh well, this is what the Green Party think about Jews. And when you
Mm,
couple that with the way that they've responded to the text message that we just looked at in the other story, that again, if you actually read it, doesn't say what the press say it says, and the constant smears of anti-Semitism against the only Jewish leader of a political party in the UK, I do think it will, for people who,
mm.
for your average person who isn't a close follower of politics, I think it is something else to add fuel, where they'll look at that and go, oh well, maybe the Green Party are anti-Semitic then, in the same way that they fell for it with Corbyn, because unless you're inside it and you actually understand the nuances and the differences, you know, unfortunately the headlines do work. And actually, interestingly, I have had conversations as recently as last week on the doorstep whilst out with the Green Party with people who have said, and I'm hearing this more now than I was, that they think our leader's a complete and utter nutcase. And I mean, it's great they know who the leader is, because there were journalists in Gorton and Denton who didn't know who Adrian Ramsey was. So at least people on the doorstep know who Zach is. But I am hearing more and more now than I think I was even 2 months ago. People on the doorstep who have concerns about Zach, and I think a lot of that has come from the recent smears. And
Yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
some of it'll stick. Um,
Look,
but
no one's immune from propaganda. I did want to quickly go through just a few more tweets from Gary Spedding, which is very interesting when talking about anti-Semitism weaponization. Gary says, another elephant in the room is the efforts to manufacture a Green Party anti-Semitism scandal. This has clearly been a coordinated effort involving some dubious reporting about the views of Zach Polanski's family, which is responded too robustly. The only other evidence of anti-Semitism in the Green Party has been a single series of WhatsApp messages from one individual. It is hardly an anti-Semitism crisis. And you ask me, that WhatsApp conversation wasn't even anti-Semitic. Many Jewish Greens have told me that they have not experienced anti-Semitism in their local party groups. One Jewish Green said, "I regard my local party as a safe space and haven't experienced any anti-Semitism. In my local party, I've so far not heard anything anti-Semitic. I've heard some anti-immigration stuff once from an older member, but he was a minority." The same Jewish Green member then made clear that just because they hadn't experienced anti-Semitism doesn't mean they're saying it isn't there at all. But the idea that Jews should be terrified of the Green Party being some Islamist anti-Semitic monster is ludicrous and nasty. So even when the media trying to say that the Greens are this hotbed of anti-Semitism, that is accounts from Jewish Green members who are saying it's a safe place. I've not experienced any anti-Semitism.
And also, just quickly before we move on, I do think it's also worth pointing out, and I know some people would argue and say, oh, well, that's just tokenism or whatever. But you've got to also remember that Zach Polanski was elected with a massive majority of the membership, and the huge numbers that we have seen of people joining the party. Look, I'm happy to give credit where it's due to the mass membership and the machines that have been out knocking on doors and talking to people. But let's be really honest here, and also the people behind the scenes at the top. I mean, there's been, Gorton and Denton had a fantastic team of people at the top. But let's be real here. The vast majority of new members have joined for two reasons. One, because of Zach Polanski, and two, because of how well Zach Polanski has communicated the Green Party policies. And would all those people join a party with a very, open and very, a man who is very vocal about his Jewish ancestry and his and the fact that he's gay as well, but a man who's very open about the fact he's Jewish, would all those people join the party and previous to that vote for a man who was Jewish if they were all a bunch of anti-Semites that absolutely hated Jewish people? Like, if you're anti-Semitic and you believe that Jewish people are trying to take over the world, or you believe all the nonsense anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, you're not going to elect a Jewish man into a position of power. Like, it just makes no sense. It's like expecting Reform UK to get rid of Nigel Farage and elect an asylum seeker who came by a small boat to be the leader of the party. Like, it's not going to fucking happen.
It wouldn't happen. No.
It wouldn't happen. So I mean, yeah.
We did have another story, but it's already 8:30, and we've got to go through comments, and some people are feeling under the weather. So I think we might push our final story to Wednesday. So let's go to our comments. And joining us is Sarah Delau.
It is I.
It is me. They guessed.
I was chatting. I was chatting a lot, actually. To be fair,
it wasn't the chatting. It was the comments that kept popping up mid-show that did it, Sarah.
Okay.
I'm joking. I'll be nice.
No. To be fair, I do this thing at the start where I'm like, "Yes, the producer," and it's
we know it's you when you do that.
Yeah,
you're the only producer that does it. So.
But what a show it has been! Bloody hell! Like,
really interesting conversations.
Such a riveting conversation. Honestly, I learned so much from the both of you, and the fact that you're both feeling under the weather, and shit's tough. But wow, they've pulled a real show together. So hats off to Curtis and Callum. This Len McBain, I'm on a mission to find out who the hell you are. Who is he?
Who are you? And also, Len, why were you 7 hours early?
Yeah, he was
why is there only one person?
Len's a legend.
Len's 7 hours early to a show.
And then I went on Len's profile. Len is so funny because on his he's got a whole description about "I am the only Len McBain. Anyone who impersonates me is AI." And then he has a link to turn left. Is it Ben?
Nice.
No, Ben has very vehemently distanced himself and said it is not him.
Really?
Yeah, it's not like when he has his cog and then he has not cog and then he has maybe cog, where it's the same profile picture with a like watch Len's change his profile picture now. But Len, who are you?
I like this, Len. Listen,
I
stick
don't know if we're
around,
ever going
Len.
to find out.
You've
It's
become
going
a
to be
member.
something we're going to
Might
know.
do. No,
We're
listen, he's
grateful.
a legend. Michael, thank you so much for gifting a Turn Left membership. Now we get, wow, what a show. Then we've got 20 Turn Left memberships from Subsystem Vid.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. Then we got 50 Turn Left memberships from Steve. Steve, what a legend. He always comes
Yes,
through.
Steve.
Here's
He really
Steve.
does.
Okay,
And
we're
Steve,
eating tonight.
yeah, we're eating. And Steve said he'd match that, like, if someone else, if they cumulatively, like, got 50 Turn Left
Well,
memberships.
they call it the hype train, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And then, sorry, bear with me. Then we've got another 50 Turn Left memberships from Len
Bloody hell.
McBain.
Oh, Len
50 from Len.
McBain.
From Len.
Thank you, Len.
Is Len going to be our secret wealthy donor?
Oh my God. It's all in crypto. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
So Crit saying. Well, then you have to reveal who Len McBain is with these new labour laws coming in.
Literally.
No, someone said Len's the new Banksy. I like that.
Yeah. And then we've got 20 from Specs. Honestly, thank you
Specs.
so much. Sorry, guys. It's been a real show. Like, there's been lots of people gifting. Ollie gifted a Turn Left membership. Leo gifted
you, Ollie.
10 Turn Left memberships.
Thanks,
Thank
Ollie.
you.
Thanks, Leo.
Graham, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, gifted 5 Turn Left memberships. Thank you. My laptop's
There's
lagging.
still coming in now as well.
I
can
know.
hear your laptop through my earpiece.
Yeah, same.
Okay, actually, pack it in. That's so not true.
Shouldn't have got HP, I told you.
It's
Listen, I
true.
stand by HP. Steve, 10 left memberships. Thank you. Antifa, 10 Turn Left memberships. Thank you. Sorry, I know this is so boring.
Oh my God, my ear.
But it's like, sorry. And then Steve, another 5 Turn Left
Thank
memberships.
you, thank you.
And then Steve, another 10 Turn Left memberships. Honestly, Steve,
Nice,
thank you.
guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
There's been
Thank you.
lots of gifts. Ollie gifted 5 Turn Left memberships. I'm not going to show it, but like, thanks, guys. Honestly, really grateful. And then Steve donated another 5 Turn Left memberships. So
Everyone can hear your laptop taking off.
We actually
Wait, can everyone hear it?
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Oh no!
put your background noise thing on in your settings. It might.
It's already on.
Oh,
But
Is it
no.
already on?
I'm sorry.
That's hilarious.
you
AI
need to put
no-
have you got like get an external fan and put it next to the laptop as well?
Oh, that's better. Whatever you've done there, that was.
Did that work?
It did, but it's
It
gone
worked
back
for
on
a
again.
second.
Oh shit. Okay, we just have to accept it, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Jamie said, I really don't think the media propaganda is going to work this time, and that was in relation to the first story that you did. And then Sly Loris said, if the Greens are racist, what are reform then? And I think these are the questions that need to be.
Well, to the media, they're probably less racist because they're saying the things that the media agree with. Like, you can be horrible to Muslims, and you can be Islamophobic because the media agrees with that. So they're not going to really think that reform are racist.
Yeah. And then Jacqueline said, oh, these channels are so fucking crafty. By piling on the accusations of anti-Semitism against the Green Party, they just know that they are encouraging the real anti-Semites, and they know it. And that's absolutely true. I don't think we can even...
And also,
real.
can we just remind ourselves of when Reform UK put out a fucking Semitic cartoon of that?
The AI image of that.
Where he looked like the fucking devil, and I thought the hypnosis thing, but it was like the caricature that made of it was like all the fucking Jewish stereotypes. Like, nobody batted an eyelid about that. And then, all right, to be fair, there was a bit of heat on Nigel Farage about, the gas chamber comments he made at the school. But, like, comparison to the heat that's
Well, it's the same as when the media came after Jeremy Corbyn, right? They were basically saying he's Hitler 2.0.
Sorry.
At the same time, Boris Johnson had released a book in which he literally included anti-Semitic stereotypes within the book, and you've got quotes from Boris Johnson which are anti-Semitic. The media doesn't say anything, but they go to Jeremy Corbyn and manufacture an anti-Semitism.
I think no, the thought's gone. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Jim Speak said, Turn Left claim to be not funded by oligarchs, but then who is this shadowy benefactor who just showed up on the scene? A man still known as Leonard McBain.
Leonard, it makes it funny that's Leonard. Jim, I mean, you're still my number
Leonard
one
McBain.
suspect of Len McBain.
Yeah.
You
Oh, you think
insist
it's
it's not
Jim?
you.
You think it's Jim?
Well, Jim insists, but
Has Jim and Len
in the
both
same
have they
room.
both posted at the same time
They
and
have,
in the
well,
same
they're
chat?
both in the chat apparently, but you can have
I've not seen Len post for a bit
you
though.
can have tabs open. So
I've not seen Len post for a bit.
And then I think we're on to the second story here. I think UK socialists hoping the Greens will be socialist. History proves you wrong. But I don't think anyone's arguing that the Green Party is a socialist party.
no, yeah. Just, I
So I
mean,
don't
the
know
Labour
that.
Party are not a socialist party. They were never a, arguably they were never a socialist party, but they were a party with socialists in it. Actually, I think that was I think
So Jeremy
Ralph
Corbyn quote,
Miliband.
isn't it?
Well, Ralph Miliband said that.
Did he? I think Corbyn
I
said it
believe it's
more
Ralph
recently.
Miliband. It's a party. Well, Labour. It's a party with socialists in it, but it's not necessarily a socialist party.
I'm conscious of the time, so I'm actually going to skip a few comments, but this one was quite interesting. It's a thread it's where someone thought you were wrong, Curtis. Pseudonymous said they named it that so they can just call anyone who tries to debate any part in good faith a quote-unquote genocidal Zionist instead of actually cooperatively debating. What missing piece of existing policy does this motion provide? What is the purpose? Racism is already prescribed. It
I mean,
continues.
go on.
Oh, sorry. The motion forces a one-state solution only, no explanation as to what happens if Palestinians vote for a two-state solution or any peace process different than that. The motion outlines. And then Autumn was the one that said, interrogate Curtis. And then he said, okay, I will. Curtis is wrong.
Well, first of all, you'll make a claim that the name of the motion was done deliberately to accuse anyone opposing it or criticizing it as genocide. I mean, that's just a claim, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't believe that's the case at all. I mean, again, the person who wrote it, Lubna Spuyten, who we spoke to when the motion was first brought about, she's Palestinian. I'm not going to turn around and call a fucking Palestinian something and say that she made this name for these reasons. In terms of like, what about all the Palestinians that vote for a two-state solution? Which Palestinians? Do you mean British Palestinians in a political party? Again, I mean, Lubna Spuyten is a Palestinian. Or are you talking about Palestinians in Palestine because they don't get to vote because they're currently being bombarded by the genocide? The general consensus was a two-state solution, but I do think that's becoming untenable. In fact, I don't think a two-state solution is even possible. I mean, if you're going to have a two-state solution, a solution of Palestine, a state of Palestine, and a state of Israel, and they somehow agree on borders, right? And first of all, there's no guarantee that they're going to agree on the borders. But let's say they agree on the borders. Are you telling me that Israel's just going to accept that? They've just bombed Lebanon and just killed children in Lebanon. They've bombed Syria. They've gone for the Golan Heights. They've gone for Libya. They've attacked multiple different regions in the Middle East because they believe in the greater Israel project. There are people within the Israeli government who want to take over the entire Middle East and have it as just Israel. So why would they respect the borders just because it's recognized legally? And we know how Israel acts to international law. So just because borders are set in legal motion, just because there's a legal entity of Palestine, that's not going to stop Israel. So the two-state solution, in my view, is completely untenable. But again, I don't know who you refer to as the Palestinians who vote for a two-state solution. But of course, Palestinians are also allowed to disagree with each other.
I do think that this idea that we need to make sure that it is for the people of Palestine to decide what their future should look like. I do think it's fair that we should have that view, but at the same time, like you've pointed out, Curtis, at the moment, the people in Gaza, the people in Palestine, they don't have a say. They don't have a right to well, they should have a right, but they don't have a legal ability to voice what they want right now. So should we have a stance? Well, as long as we're willing to change our mind, if the people in Palestine down the line want something different, I think that's okay. If we want to say, well, actually, there should be a one-state solution, if the people of Palestine then turn around when they get hopefully when they get the opportunity to decide this and say, actually, we want a two-state solution, we can say, okay, cool. In which case, then we'll support that instead because that's what you want. But at the moment, when they haven't got that voice, I think maybe we should be able to decide. But I don't know. I feel
Well,
uncomfortable with the idea that any political party in the UK should be debating the future of another country or another state, whether it's a line in policy or whether it's an out and out debate, because I feel like we do that too much already, and it's how we've ended up
I
with
mean,
a
I
lot of the
think I
problems that we have
think where
caused anyway.
Synonymous makes a good point is the point you made earlier, which is that like why have this motion? Like the policy of the Green Party is anti-racist anyway. So what does this actually do materially? And I think you make a very good point. Materially, what does this change? And again, like maybe not a lot, but on the flip side, we've spent decades trying to build institutions recognizing such and such things. Right? We've got groups within every single party for Jewish people. So I guess why can't we have motions that recognize these sorts of things? Again, I'm not a Green Party member. All right, I'm not a member of a political party. If I was a Green Party member, I would vote for this motion. But with the caveat that I completely understands that one might say it can be seen as a distraction because we probably all agree, or most of us agree, on the policies we want with Israel. So why does
But
having a
also,
motion do this and could lead to more political attacks?
but also, you've also got the fact that actually, which has just occurred to me, where it will make a difference, is if the party actually formally recognise that Zionism is a form of racism, then it gives the party the right, arguably, to remove people from the party who self-identify as Zionists. Right, it gives which the media I think have already tried to spin as oh, the Greens are trying to ban Jewish people from the party.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in the same way that we got rid of the TERFs, if we've got people within the party who actively support the destruction of Palestine in order for the people of Israel to have a Jewish homeland at the expense of slaughtering innocent people, I don't think people like that should be in the Green Party anyway. And if we've got a policy that says that Zionism is racism, then that would open the door for disciplinary action to be taken against racists within the party, and that racism might be, shown through their Zionism. Does that create problems from a wider public perception in terms of how the media will interpret that as trying to ban Jews from the party? Well, I'm sure that they will spin it that way. But if it's a clear cut, well, actually, you're being kicked out of the party or you're being disciplined because of your views, your support for a fucking genocide, which the party is against, yeah, because of your belief in essentially an ethno state, which is ethno nationalism, which is a form of racism, then you shouldn't be in the party. And at the moment, if the party don't recognize Zionism as racism, then there's no mechanism in place to be able
I
to
mean,
remove people that have those views.
I can see the complications if it's passed because it's to say, look, would the party tolerate someone who self-identifies as a Zionist but completely opposes all Israeli government policies and says, look, I completely stand against the genocide, I completely support BDS, I completely support stopping arms to be sent to Israel, which wouldn't put anyone out of step with any other member of the Green Party, but they personally self-identify as Zionist. And then you've got someone who's like, oh, I just fucking love genocide, which, to be honest, you're going to be kicked out of the Green Party anyway, or you probably wouldn't be in there. There's that particular aspect too, and I don't know what's right or wrong. Some might say, well, fuck you, if you're someone if you call yourself a Zionist, you shouldn't be anywhere. And I'm like, fine, I guess, but also at the same time, the Green Party is trying to get into government, and there might be, like, do you not want every single vote you could possibly get? Like, would you not want a Zionist who says, again, I believe in a state for Jewish people in a vague sense? Again, I'm an anti-Zionist, but a Zionist might say that, but I oppose everything Israel's doing right now. I would still want that person to vote for the Greens to get them into power.
Yeah. Well,
do you see what I'm trying to say?
No, 100%. And actually, the other point that Jacqueline's just made as well, I don't know whether we can get the comment up or not, but she said, shouldn't it be banning people from the Green Party for downright Islamophobia? And actually, do we need to define Zionism as racism in order to kick people out of the party who are actively supporting an ongoing genocide. Because if we do have people within the party that are supportive of the Israeli government, then I don't see how that isn't Islamophobic anyway. So surely that in and of itself, we don't have to define Zionism as racism in order to call out Islamophobia, right? So I don't know. I think this is why it's caused such a stir as well. And I mean, this may
Yeah.
be why, it seems allegedly we've got people like Carla Denyer wanting to speak against it, because it may be that the only things in practice that this motion can achieve are things that we can already do without confusing things on a public level with words that members of the public might not understand. But I don't know. It's one thing that I can say for certain though is this story is going to drag on, and if it doesn't get sorted before, this motion's going to pass in the autumn. I'm sure of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
And to
that's
be
a
honest,
really
like
good.
sorry, I was gonna say how many like self-described Zionists exist that don't agree with Israel currently? I don't think I've met any. So it could just be getting rid of just bastards anyway. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm principally in for this. I would vote for it, but again, I'm not a political party member.
And
People
just
accuse
on
me
a,
of being a member of the Green Party. I'm not a member of any
you
political
got
party.
you got accused by the former deputy leader the other day of being
The former deputy leader of the Green Party said I
Green
joined
Party.
Greens recently and I'm grifting. I'm like, I'm not a member of the party.
You know, but also, oh, what on earth was I just going to say then? I can't remember. It's gone. I saw a comment that no, it's completely gone. Completely gone.
It's okay. I think just to go, this will be the final comment because I'm conscious of time, but just going back to what you'd pointed to this, but just to point to it as well. Chat, please know that Colonel David has done a very good video on what actually has happened as far as is known so far. Please watch for jumping to conclusions about letdown Greens, etc., etc. That's actually though really interesting interaction between the two of you. I think that was really interesting. And then we got donations as well. Ollie, Len, and Steve. So yeah, thanks so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sarah, for producing.
Thanks,
Thank you
Sarah.
for your wonderful comments. And everyone was so generous tonight once again. I think that was a really good show because we did not shy away from delving deep into internal shit going on. And I think it was right to hash it out. What do you think? I thought it was a good discussion.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to sort of continue it when we're wrapping up, but I also think that I think this has helped highlight where we still have a number of weaknesses within the party. Thanks, Steve, for that £2 donation there as well. I think this has helped highlight where there are weaknesses, and like I said earlier, I think we need to sort out the procedural stuff, and we need to reassess the way that I think conference works in terms of voting on policy to make sure that we actually have time to not only debate and actually go over policy, but to vote on policy, because our membership's only going to keep growing, and there is going to come a time very soon. In fact, we're already here where the infrastructure that we have in place is just not strong enough to support. In fact, I tried to find out what the numbers were in terms of the restrictions, and the response I essentially got was that I think there's a widespread understanding that structures need scaling up to match the new membership size. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Callum, and thank you to all the donations. Really, really, really generous show tonight. Much appreciated. I think for a while we're getting cucked by the algorithm, as they say. Numbers look pretty good tonight. Maybe back to normal. Who knows? But of course, yes. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Of course, Normal Island airs every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 p.m. So we will be back this Wednesday. I'm Curtis Daly. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.